Hello, thank you guys so much for coming to my session. I really, really appreciate it. I do wish I could be there in person. Unfortunately, life circumstances had other plans, but I do still hope you'll find value in this, digital format that I'm kind of experimenting with, and have some practical takeaways you can take back to your classrooms and your school systems. So, without further ado, my name is Corrine Hurt. I'm an Ed.D candidate at the University of Southern Indiana. I'm a published author, writer, researcher, all the fun stuff. Owner of a digital marketing agency called Dark Matter LLC, and certified bad kid. I did not give myself that label. It was a label given to me, and we'll dive a little bit more into that later in the session. So I wasn't actually supposed to be here. And I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because it's true. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place that has way more cornfields than stoplights, where people call it getting by, but really they're just surviving. I was raised by a single mother who had the courage to leave my alcoholic father. She worked third shift, not because she wanted to. I don't know anybody who really wants to work third shift, right? But because it paid 50 cents more an hour. And that 50 cents meant we were able to keep the lights on most of the time. I didn't have tutors. I didn't have college visits. FAFSA might as well have been a foreign language to me. I didn't really know anyone with a degree, or if I did, I didn't really know how to talk to them about it. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. But I did have something else eventually. It was my high school art teacher, actually, who saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. And, I had a friend who helped me fill out FAFSA line by terrifying line. I had a librarian give me a book that was about strong girls, and she told me that I was one. I had a coach who made sure I got home safe when my mother couldn't. And none of them saved me, right? But together they bridged gaps that I just wasn't able to cross alone. And that that is what we're here to talk about today. Social capital. It's the invisible web of people and relationships and community ties that catch kids when the system doesn't. And unfortunately, there is a lot of us. It's the trust that someone is going to show up when you need them. It's knowing that you matter even when you're too tired or you're too hungry to believe it. And in early intervention, we can't afford to treat this connection like a bonus. It's the strategy. It's the thread that holds the work together. Because sometimes, a backpack full of services isn't enough if the child carrying it feels alone. We've got to stop calling them the bad kids, right? I wasn't a bad kid. I was a stressed kid. I was a tired kid. I was a hungry kid. I was a kid who knew more about filing for unemployment during the 2008 recession than I did about SAT prep. But so often, kids like me get labeled as problems before we're ever seen as a potential. And, we get called things like at risk, difficult, unmotivated, loud, terms that sound clinical, but they land like scars. Most so called at risk kids aren't lacking intelligence, they're not lacking resilience, they're lacking access. They're navigating trauma while we're testing them on fractions. They're making and managing adult responsibilities, raising siblings, translating for parents, holding jobs to contribute to the household, while still trying to keep up with a world that has already told them they're behind. And the danger is when we only see what these students are missing, we miss who they are. That's where critical hope comes in. It's not the, fluffy, motivational quote kind of hope. It's not the Instagrammable kind of hope, right? It's the kind of hope that's it's gritty and it's grounded and it's revolutionary. And uh, Duncan Andrade says, hope is not magic. Hope is work. And critical hope means it doesn't mean we ignore the barriers or the boundaries, but we don't believe they get the last word either. It's the belief that just because a student is struggling doesn't mean they're broken. And our job isn't to rescue them, it's to recognize them. So we need to not just offer services, we need to offer dignity. We don't just need to intervene, we need to invest heavily. We don't just document deficiencies or deficits, we are building on strength. I didn't need someone to come and fix me or come and save me. I needed someone to believe in me and show me how to believe in myself. So, what is social capital really? In simple terms, it's not just who you know, it's who shows up when life gets hard, who writes the recommendation letters, who says, I know someone who can help, who tells you you belong here. Researchers like Coleman, Kroninger, and Lee, they've done very extensive studies, much more in depth than I have ever done. So we'll kind of, defer to them as the experts. But they actually found that social capital is just as predictive of long-term success as academic performance, and especially for students who are in rural, high poverty communities. But here's the thing. Social capital, it doesn't just happen. It's built. It's deliberate, compassionately, empathetically, and often pretty quietly. And here's the thing. When you're rural, you're remote. Rural kids face all of the challenges, right? Poverty, distance, limited access to resources, and a spotlight that never dims. In these small communities, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows your business. And sometimes they know your baggage. A recent study found that rural students experience a unique layering of risks, again, economic hardships, geographic isolation, and cultural invisibility that mainstream education narratives just don't account for. But that's only one side of the story because rural communities also hold deep wells of resilience, tight knit kin networks, intergenerational memory, and fierce, fierce community pride. These kids grow up learning how to stretch a dollar, how to fix what's broken, and how to make something out of nothing. They know survival, they know sacrifice, but most importantly, they know each other. And the problem is the systems, they don't always know them, right? Too often we, kind of helicopter in this urban designed intervention that just doesn't translate to these rural communities. We need to, we send people who don't speak the language, literally and culturally. We collect data, we write grants, and then we leave. And we focus on fixing instead of connecting. And that's the problem. Because what rural families do not need is a savior, but they do need a bridge, a neighbor who's also a navigator, a coach who knows the paperwork, a service coordinator who gets that transportation isn't just about miles, it's about trust. And in rural areas, social capital, it's not extra. It's the infrastructure we build when the official ones just fall short. And we see it a lot, right? And when we honor this local knowledge, when we build instead of program at, we stop replicating the problem and start restoring power to the people who are already in the communities doing the work. Down into three different types of capital we can build into early intervention. So you have bonding capital, which are like your close personal relationships, your ride or die people, your family, your trusted neighbors, your mentors. This early intervention strategy can look like building consistent trauma informed relationships. But most importantly, it's continuity. It's not just services, but finding these consistent trauma informed people and getting them to stay. And then next, you have to kind of bridge that capital, right? These are connections who are outside of your immediate world, people who open new doors, like my art teacher, Sandy Miller, school counselors, friends, parents. This can kind of manifest as, your school or you partnering with libraries, churches, barbershops, mental health organizations, 501c3s. It could look like inviting community connectors into the conversation. It could be hosting family asset mapping to discover existing trust networks. And then finally, it's linking all that capital or creating vertical access to systems and institutions. This is the rarest and most transformational form of capital. It's someone who connects you to healthcare, housing, education, lifelines, right? This can look like training providers to be navigators. It can look like advocating for co-located services. It can be building warm handoffs instead of just cold, stark referrals. Let's take one more step back and let's look at teacher efficacy. Because high efficacy teachers and providers, they have the power to make a difference and change lives. And it's been proven that they do. Students thrive when they're seen, not just as cases, but as full, complex human beings. But to see them, we have to reframe the behaviors we often pathologize, right? A hungry child isn't disruptive, they're surviving. A quiet student isn't just apathetic, they may be overwhelmed. A parent who misses a meeting isn't just uninvolved, right? They might be exhausted or afraid or work third shift like my mother. High efficacy educators don't confuse poverty with pathology, and they do operate from critical hope. High efficacy teachers asked, what strengths are here and what trust can I build with this student, with this parent? We've done a good job of talking about, trauma, poverty, networking, but let's go one step further because connection is the antidote, right? Because students, they don't just need safe spaces, they need belonging. They need people to look them in the eye and say, I see you, you matter, I've been here too. Because that's what social capital does at its core. It's not charity, it's dignity. So here's how we start. Map your people. Who are the trusted connectors in your school and community? Make referrals more relational. Walk students to support. Don't just direct them. Don't just hand them a business card. Walk with them there. Create a warm handoff. Treat parents as partners because they're the expert of their child. They're the expert of their family dynamics. They're the expert of their life circumstances and their child's life circumstances, right? Trust them. And then train for efficacy. Support teachers and providers and help them believe again, right? It can be so difficult and draining to be a teacher in society today. So you have to kind of teach them and encourage them to believe in themselves again and believe in the student and believe in the system. Normalize connection. Ask, who does this child trust in every single meeting? So what does all this mean for us? It means we stop waiting for a system to come and save our kids. And we start being the connective tissue ourselves. We don't ask, what's wrong with this family, right? But who do they already trust? How do we show up? Not as saviors, but as scaffolding. So let me circle back. I got here because someone saw me, because someone opened a door that I didn't even know it was a door, right? I'm not an exception. I'm an example. I'm an example of what's possible when connection is the strategy. So don't build more band-aids, build bridges. Because every child, rural or urban, housed, unhoused, every child deserves a network that says they're worth it. And if they don't have one yet, the bridge they're looking for is you. Thank you.